Yes, you guys, and I hope your weekends went well. I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lions TV, and welcome to a 5 talking points video after our 1-0 defeat against Kawasaki Frontale. Now in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Kenedy, David Luiz, what Frank Lampard's trying to accomplish at this club. I'll be talking about why Lampard is using the 4-2-3-1 formation, and to end things, I'm going to be talking about Ross Barkley. However, before I get into anything, today's video is brought to you by the OneFootball app. You'll find the link in the description below. Download the OneFootball app if you want to help me out, because honestly, every download really helps me out a ton. If you want to do that, you'll find the link in the description below. Now getting straight into things, I need to talk about David Luiz. You guys know my thoughts and opinions on David Luiz. I really don't feel he's as bad as most people say he is. I don't think he's bad defensively like people say he is, but again, it's my take, it's my opinion. And one thing I have noticed is that David Luiz was the first player to complete 90 minutes under Frank Lampard, and I think that that's quite a serious sign. I think that tells us that David Luiz is the first choice defender that Frank Lampard wants. I think now it's going to be between Zuma or Christensen to partner him, and honestly, it really doesn't surprise me. Now, since Luiz did return for his second spell, we've had 3 managers, and all 3 managers rate the player and they use him. So that just speaks volumes in regards to David Luiz's abilities and just how good he is. And when you saw him playing against Kawasaki, you could see why Frank Lampard really wants a player of those dimensions in his team. Immediately, we know that David Luiz, well, for me, he is the best ball-playing defender in Europe. And we could see with his array of passes against Kawasaki, I mean, balls out to the fullbacks, and that's going to be a really important thing in this system, because we know that Lampard wants the fullbacks to get high and wide, and in that sense, there are going to be times where the fullbacks will be isolated. When that happens, you want someone from deep who has the passing range and the passing ability to find these guys. Time and time again in that game, we saw Luiz making those passes, and on top of that, we did see David Luiz make his customary passes between the lines, and they're the type of passes that attacking players love, because it's so hard to find the right position and space to receive the ball. So when you do find that space, you want to make sure that someone's going to find you with a pass, and that's where David Luiz is very important for this team. I mean, on top of that, he's old, he's got the experience, and he's one of those players where he complements playing alongside different styles of defenders. For me, I kind of feel as if David Luiz has become like Mikel back in the day. And I say that in the sense that, Mikel was a very good player in the role he played, but he was always criminally underrated by this fan base. Everyone mistook his use of the ball for being not good enough, not being creative enough, etc, etc. And I think with David Luiz it's the same thing. I mean, yeah, every now and then, which isn't common, David Luiz is going to make a mistake, but the question is, should that one mistake dismiss his entire game? Should that one mistake dismiss the 9 other good things he brings to the team? I don't think so. I don't think it's fair. And for me, David Luiz has to be a first choice starter. Now, yes, I've said this time and time again, and I think it's been reported as well. Luiz knows that he might not be the first choice defender as the season ends. However, for the start of the season, for the start of Frank Lampard's reign, there needs to be a sense of stability. You do need to work towards that future where you do see Zuma and Christensen playing together, but before we get there, stability is needed, and David Luiz has that in abundance. His leadership is needed when a lot of younger players will be playing in the first team. Now, moving straight into the second talking point for today, and yes, I am going to be talking about Mr. Ross Barkley. Now, against Kawasaki, Barkley played in his familiar position as a number 10. It's the second game in a row that he's done that under Frank Lampard, and as I've said time and time again, when I used to critique Ross Barkley, I'd always explain the context. And one example that I used to bring up a lot was back at Everton, he used to play close alongside Lukaku. And tactically, it was very similar to what Liverpool used to do under Benitez, playing Torres and Gerrard very close to each other. Now, of course, playing as a number 10 does suit Barkley a lot more, and that's because he's able to have the time and space. And he has that because we have the left winger and the right winger hugging the touchline, stretching the play. Behind him are two defensive midfield players. So playing as a number 10 means that Barkley is able to have the freedom to do what he wants. He doesn't have to worry too much about his defensive responsibilities. He can focus more on finding spaces and obviously attacking the opposition. And against Kawasaki, we did see some of these qualities. However, for me, if Ross Barkley continues to play in the number 10 position, is that really going to elevate the other players around him? And is that really going to turn us into a big team? I sound cynical, but I'm not too sure. Now, this is slightly worrying as I'm unsure of how often we are going to use a 4-2-3-1 as the season does progress, because for me, I still feel as if it's pretty circumstantial. However, when we do start to use a 4-3-3, does Barkley really have it in him? We've seen last season, playing as a number 8 doesn't get the best out of Barkley. There's a lot more you need to have in your game. There's a lot more responsibilities that you need to play with whenever you're playing in midfield. And time again, Barkley showed that really it wasn't the best position for him. Now, for me, it's going to be interesting to see how Lampard does decide to use Barkley in the future. I think it's quite obvious for all of us that Lampard does prefer Mason Mount. I think that Mason Mount is a better player than Barkley in my opinion. He's able to do a lot more. And I don't know, you guys, when it comes to Barkley, of course, I'm going to give him another opportunity to show me what he can do for this season. But still, with the amount of players that we have in midfield, the options we have there, is Barkley really going to do anything? It sounds cynical, I'm not too sure, but I'm willing to see what he's going to do. Now, moving straight into the third talking point for today, I do want to talk about what Frank Lampard is trying to bring to this club. Now, in Lampard's press conference after the game, he spoke about Man City and Man United, and he spoke about how they're still in the market for players. He followed this up by saying when players like Ruben, Hudson-Odoi, Willian, Rudy and Reece return fully fit, they are going to uplift the team and they're basically going to be like new signings. Now, this is why Lampard for me is experimenting with using different formations. He has to make the best of the situation until the key players return back to the team. Now, Lampard and adapting should be synonymous at this point. It really should be. That's one thing that he's constantly talking about. Lampard will do whatever he needs to do to get those 3 points. And he's going to look for the best solutions to help him get there. Now, if 4-2-3-1 is used, this doesn't mean that it's going to be used forever. It just means that with the players at his disposal right now, the formation does suit the players available now. It seems like Lampard is adapting to different formations to find out what is the best one to stick with. Now, until more key players return, it's going to keep being like this. And so far we've seen Lampard use 3 different styles in the team. We've used a 4-1-2-1-2, the diamond midfield, and we've used 2 variations of the 4-2-3-1. We've used a 4-2-3-1 focused on possession style of football, where Jorginho and Cover are playing in the pivot, and we've seen a 4-2-3-1 counter-pressing system, where we've seen 2 defensive midfield players in guys like Drinkwater, Ampadu or Bakayoko. Now, with the size of the squad and the players we have right now, Lampard is basically saying that he wants to see everyone play so he can fairly assess them. And that's one thing that you want to hear from your manager. Too often, especially under Sarri, he had certain ideas on players, I feel, without really giving them opportunities or really being fair. And when it comes to Lampard, this really is the most common sense approach. It's the approach where players are going to give their best to really persuade Lampard why they need to stay. And also from a man management point of view, it's going to give players the confidence that, yeah, you know what, if I perform, I can make it here. And that's how you get the best out of a 25-man squad. As I said earlier, Lampard and adapting should be synonymous. They both go together. It's 2 of the same thing. And Lampard has his philosophy because he wants to win at all costs. He's going to find the best solution to get the 3 points. He's not a manager where he really cares about the philosophy, where you stick to it until you die. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. That's just a reality on Lampard's. Still though, I do see Lampard using a 4-3-3 soon. Pulisic has returned to the squad, and I think that once other midfield players do return, once the wingers are fully fit, remember Willian and Hudson-Odoi are out right now, I do see Lampard using a 4-3-3. And again, for people worrying about 4-2-3-1, I know that some of the fans haven't enjoyed it so far. I've had my reservations as well. I don't really want to see a team with two defensive midfielders in midfield. That's the last thing I want to see. But again, it's pre-season. Lampard wants to fairly assess all the players at his disposal. This is nothing to do with stubbornness. This is purely being fair to the squad and finding the best solutions. And to end things with a final talking point, I do want to talk about Kenedy. And Kenedy is a very interesting player. I know that all of us have felt that the guy's constantly been used out of position. He was never a fullback. He was never good there. I don't even think he's too great on the left wing. His natural game is to start on the right hand side, where he's able to cut in with his left foot, take shots, and get involved in the play. Now, we saw bits and pieces of this in the previous game against Kawasaki. Kenedy was doing the same stuff, but on the left hand side. When the second half came though, he was playing on the right hand side. And even though I thought his quality on the ball was pretty poor in that game, I did feel as if his energy and his intelligent movement in behind really was working in the second half. And it gave me confidence in the player. It made me think that if Kenedy is given a set position, his best position as well, and he's told that you have the opportunity to fight for a place in the team, I think that Kenedy could really surprise us. He really could. I'm looking at Pedro, and for me, he's getting older. I don't think he's the same player. I don't think he's as good as he used to be. When it came to things like shots on target, Pedro would like to score a goal every 3 to 4 shots. These days, it's double that right now, and he's just not effective in his overall game. So if you're Kenedy, if Lampard's giving you this confidence, really it's time to wake up and make something happen. Now, I'm going to leave Lampard's quotes on Kenedy somewhere around me on the screen, but I do take this as Lampard really telling Kenedy, if you step up, you can have a future at this club. And you have to realise, the January window coming up, I really feel as if Lampard's giving Kenedy a test until January. If you don't perform, if you show us that you can't play at this level, then I wouldn't be surprised to see Kenedy loaned out in January. So this pre-season is really going to be big for Kenedy. I think one thing that Lampard likes is that his application is there. And that's the bare minimum you want from a player. If Lampard can trust Kenedy to work hard, run hard, win the ball back, press very well, that's going to give him the confidence to give Kenedy more opportunities coming in the future. And for me, one thing that I do want to see from Kenedy, we know that he should be playing on the right hand side. I've always felt as if that he is like a younger version of Hulk. I want to see him score at least one long range banger from the left hand side before he ever goes. Let's at least give the player the opportunity to really show what he's about. Hopefully now under Lampard, and with the current situation with so many wingers being injured or not fully fit, Kenedy has an opportunity now to make something happen this pre-season and stake a claim in this team. I haven't given up on him, but it's ultimately going to rely on the player. I'm hoping that, the skills are going to come back, the ability is going to come back, and most importantly, the confidence as well. Anyway, you guys, I'm going to keep things moving. They're the 4 things that I noticed the most this pre-season. There are a lot more things though, but I kind of feel as if there's future videos that I want to discuss these talking points in. I don't want to obviously congest today's video because again, it would be a bit of an information overload. I'm going to keep things moving, you guys. I need to eat right now. Thank you for watching. I'm Kenedy FC. This is Blue Lines TV. See you guys later.